As UNESCO's World Heritage Committee convenes for its annual meeting in Brazil, the famous skyline of Istanbul's minarets is in danger of losing its claim as a World Heritage Site. City planners say this would be devastating, not only for Istanbul, but could have broader implications.
Turkey has 6 other listed sites. If Istanbul is placed on the endangered heritage list, it will open the way for these other sites to be included on this list.
Typhoon says it could also damage any future aspirations for recognition of new sites that are being discovered, such as these Byzantine ships unearthed in 2007, thought to be the earliest in world history, which date the site back to the 11th century.
There are new sites that should be listed as World Heritage, but this would make it difficult. It will be a huge loss to Istanbul's image and standing, and it will be because of poor administrative practices, and the world will see this.
The problem, say urban planners, is that in a city that has expanded to 16 million people over the past 10 years, no one is really tracking the changes.
It's really hard to define what's going on in the city actually, because in terms of social life or economic life or environmental changes, we have a really rapid change.
One of the projects under fire by UNESCO is this metro bridge currently under construction that will connect the old city with Greater Istanbul. Something the committee says will destroy the famous skyline that sits above it.
UNESCO actually has been trying to tell this for years now, and they've been trying to tell that we are not protecting our city properly.
Leading architects and urban planners are now working against the clock to preserve the city's title as a World Heritage Site. They hope it won't be too late, after UNESCO's repeated warnings to authorities here. Jody Sobral, Press TV, Istanbul.
In Islam, zakat or alms giving, which basically means helping the poor and the needy, is one of the 5 pillars of the religion, which also includes the belief in the oneness of Allah and the finality of the prophethood of Muhammad, along with daily prayers, fasting, and a pilgrimage to Mecca, if you can afford it. Press TV's Jody Sobral takes a look at Ramadan in Turkey, a formerly secular state with Islam as its most prominent religion.
High above Istanbul, these men are replicating a 450-year-old Ottoman art form, the mahya. It's not a job for the faint-hearted. I've just walked the 242 steps to join the Mahya team as they prepare the mosque for Ramadan. The view from this perspective is fantastic. Every year the team come here and dress these minarets with spiritual messages that will be read by millions of Istanbul's residents. It's a job they do with great pride.
The Mahya job is 450 years old. It was then a tradition adopted by the Ottomans. These messages are hanged on Istanbul, Bursa and Edirne mosques.
Thanks to technology, hanging the spiritual messages has become easier, says Kahraman, who has been doing this job for 36 years.
They used to burn oil lamps, so the Mahya guy would change the oil and ensure they stayed alight.
Back on the ground, the Mahya team explain what Ramadan means for them. What does Ramadan mean for you?
It's very important in the Islamic world, and for us, Ramadan is a renewal. We fast, we celebrate in the evening, we make iftar, we pray. It's the month of the public.
And for you, what does Ramadan mean for you?
Ramadan gives us energy and excitement with our team and our family. We think about buying special foods. We make the mahya, which is our duty during Ramadan. In the evenings, we break the fast with iftar. We are trying to enjoy and be satisfied.
Ramadan is a month of prayer, fasting and the practicing of zakat or almsgiving, one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Zakat was a practice initiated by the Prophet Muhammad himself. It has played a significant role in Islamic history. It was effectively a tax collected by the rich and given to the poor. Zakat is considered by Muslims to be an act of piety which expresses concern for the well-being of fellow Muslims. In Istanbul, it's in iftar tents like these where zakat is practiced by local businessmen in conjunction with the municipality. They provide food for the less wealthy to break their fast.
Zekat Allah'ın emridir ilk önce.
Zakat is the order of God. It's about social help and sharing. It's the right of the poor. If the rich people give to the poor, the idea is that there will be no poor people. It's an equal distribution of wealth, of brotherhood and social help.
Every day this tent will feed 5,000. People joining the iftar meal here told us their personal feelings about the holy month.
In Ramadan we fast and cleanse our sins. When we fast we feel hungry, and we can understand, for example, how hungry people in Somalia feel. That's the meaning of fasting.
If there is a good moment, Ramadan means that people should help each other, that we eat together, and understand those who are poor. It promotes the idea of helping each other.
Ramadan feels different for us because we came from Germany. Here we can feel the spirituality of Ramadan. Ramadan is a valuable month when the Islamic world unites.
During Ramadan, it is a religious duty to read the Quran daily. On the other side of town, in a small local mosque, these children are doing just that. It's not unusual to see scenes like this during the summer break, but because Ramadan falls in the middle of summer this year, it's been given a special focus. These Turkish boys and girls are learning to read the Quran in Arabic. Attendance is up this year.
We do this every year. But of course, if you're reading the Quran during Ramadan, it's more meaningful because the Quran was delivered during the holy month. That's why we have a culture of reading the Quran in Ramadan.
The minarets of this mosque carry the message, Ramadan abundance. The messages are changed weekly throughout the holy month, providing light entertainment and spiritual motivation. This year Ramadan falls in the hottest month of the year in Turkey, making it a real test of faith. Jody Sobral reporting from Istanbul. Turkey has approved plans to expand a NATO airbase accommodating an estimated 400 operational and technical forces. The move comes amid ongoing unrest in neighbouring Syria. NATO's Secretary-General says restructuring facilities will make NATO leaner, more flexible and better able to deal with future challenges. Local observers, however, say that it could have a different purpose.
The base will not be anymore as an only Air Force base, and they're turning it into a land base, which, considering the region's importance in the operations against Libya, could be seen as the main point of entry for NATO to intervene in the recent unrest in the Middle East and North Africa. So in that sense, it could be part of a broader plan to engage the alliance more into the region.
Others agree that Turkey is a strategic launch pad for NATO operations, but that it's too early to tell whether Syria is being discussed in these terms.
Turkey at the moment is situated at a location where much of the purposes to which NATO is to be put are present. At the moment, there's no NATO decision to be engaged in Syria, so the two issues should be kept apart, and Turkey has an interest in peaceful change, bringing about peaceful change in Syria.
Turkey has been an outspoken critic against military intervention in regional countries, but joined the Libyan campaign. So what does this tell us about Turkish foreign policy?
The envelope has become more important than the letter, meaning that we have a military intervention going on and it's open-ended. Nobody knows where it will end. But Turkey is in just because it is an international intervention.
Well, one must remember that base privilege is not extended to a member that is not enthusiastic to receive it. So I think it's understandable that the Turkish government wanted this base.
Turkey has the second largest military in the NATO alliance after the US. A reason observers say it is of strategic importance within the scope of NATO's regional approach. Jody Sobral, Press TV, Istanbul. Istanbul, a city of up to 17 million people, is known to most visiting tourists as the bridge between East and West, with one part in Asia and the other in Europe. To those in the business of seismology, however, Istanbul is known as one of the many earthquake capitals of the world. The city sits directly above the Anatolian fault line, which threatens thousands of buildings and lives every day. The reality of this threat was felt in 1999 when a 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck the industrial town of Izmit, about 80 kilometres away, damaging hundreds of buildings, leaving tens of thousands dead and many more displaced. Having faced similar disasters such as tsunamis, cyclones and earthquakes in recent times, South Asia is one of the most hazard-prone regions in the world. And while there have been many post-disaster reconstruction programmes, little is done in terms of risk mitigation before disaster strikes. Turkey has taken the lead in combating this issue by developing many innovative initiatives, both at the national and local levels, to mitigate risk from national disasters. The United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction and the World Bank, with the collaboration of Middle East Technical University, therefore organised a trip to Turkey to examine their programmes.
This is a South Asia study tour. The purpose of the tour is to bring the senior policy level decision makers and the municipality level decision makers together to visit Turkey to learn from the Turkey's experience, particularly on disaster reduction. So we see it as a cross-learning process where exchange of ideas and experiences are promoted, with the hope that the experience of Turkey can be applied in other countries in South Asia where there is very high earthquake risk.
The tour involved the participation of 27 senior policymakers from Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka and additional delegates from Iran and Indonesia. The tour provided an exceptional hands-on learning experience for South Asian decision-makers to meet government counterparts in Turkey and develop an understanding of the tools, mechanisms and policies required for the development of a culture of disaster reduction.
Not only were we able to exchange views on this, of what each country was doing, but we were able to learn from the experience of Turkey.
I would say the reconstructions and rehab programs are driven not only by the federal government but also local government. I think there's a very good lesson that participation of local authority, local agencies, NGOs and local community and local that municipalities, etc.
Many projects we have seen here in Turkey is very important for us because we can replicate the methodology, the content and the process of this project.
Globally, we're having the situation that we don't have so many case studies where actually risk mitigation measures are implemented. So I think whatever we have seen during this study tour is quite applicable in South Asia. We have similar problems in Kathmandu, in Mumbai and other centers. So I think it's quite relevant for all kind of South Asian countries.
It's boom time in Istanbul. The city generates 27% of the country's GDP and a quarter of its tax revenues. Having returned from many years abroad in 2007, Alhadin Babaoğlu has benefited from the boom and set up a real estate investment business with German partners. His vision to provide sustainable housing and recreation space for 4,000 people on the shores of the Golden Horn has become part of the government's city regeneration plan.
What we have experienced was, for business, absolutely a very, very positive environment in every aspect. The business environment with financing, for example, in the worst financial crisis, it was 2008 and 9, we were able to fund our project with local banks in Turkey.
One man under scrutiny is Mr. R. Olu, and he's the man behind this mega housing project you can see behind me called Maslak 1453, the year the Turks conquered Constantinople. This is what they call a residence in Turkey. It will have its own shopping malls, restaurants, cinemas and hairdressers. It's attractive to home buyers because it's selling a lifestyle, said to take the stress out of living in a metropolis of 16 million people. Today, modern apartments stand where there was once a Roma settlement. The Sulukule housing redevelopment project was controversial at the time because it involved evicting the Roma community from land they'd lived on for generations.
Local officials in Fatih actually started talking about the regeneration projects even before the legislation came into effect after the 2004 election. At that time, they started studying the deeds to see which lots belonged to who. Suddenly, after the law was passed, these lots started being sold to certain people. They even came to me and offered me to buy some. They proposed prime property that would increase in value.
But Alahadin says that it's up to the investor to set the rules.
You have means to protect yourself and go your correct and clean way of doing business. It could maybe cost you a bit more time potentially, but this doesn't mean you cannot do the job. The importance is you have to show the personal decisiveness to do your job according to the ethics and disciplined rules.